The metal floor was cold and hard beneath Dahan's hands. He pressed his palm against the smooth surface, feeling the slight vibration that never stopped in the massive processing facility. Around him, rows of human workers moved with practiced efficiency, their movements careful and measured. Nobody wanted to attract attention from the Overthrew drones that hovered nearby. Dahan was different from the other workers. While his hands moved quickly, sorting and organizing components that would be used in some unknown alien purpose, his mind was always working, always planning, always watching. The Krell 2 Collective owned everything. They had taken Earth generations ago, transforming human colonies into massive production centers. To them, humans were nothing more than biological machines, resources to be used, sorted, and discarded when no longer useful. At 19, Dahan had already learned the most important lesson of survival. Keep your head down, work hard, but never stop thinking. His small fingers, calloused from years of precise work, carefully palmed a tiny piece of technology when no one was looking. It was risky. The punishment for stealing was severe, but Dahan couldn't help himself. Every small piece he collected was a piece of hope. The processing facility was a massive structure that stretched for kilometers. Bright lights illuminated every corner, making shadows impossible. Massive alien machinery hummed and clicked, processing materials that Dahan knew came from human labor. Conveyor belts moved constantly, carrying parts, components, and processed materials. An Overthrew drone floated past. Its metallic body was smooth and reflective, with multiple sensor arrays that scanned the workers continuously. Dahan kept his face neutral, his movements steady. One wrong move could mean instant punishment or worse, being marked for complete removal from the workforce. He remembered stories from the older workers, stories of how the Krell 2 had come to Earth, how they had slowly taken control. They didn't use massive weapons or giant battles. Instead, they used economics, technology, and slow manipulation. By the time humans realized what was happening, it was too late. The workstation next to Dahan belonged to Mira, a girl about his age. She worked just as carefully, her hands moving quickly and precisely. Unlike Dahan, she seemed content, or maybe she was just better at hiding her true feelings. Component 7 Alpha sorted. A worker called out. Massive screens display production numbers, efficiency ratings, and worker performance metrics. Dahan knew these screens were designed to create competition, to make workers push themselves harder. During his short break, Dahan carefully tucked the stolen piece of technology into a hidden pocket sewn inside his work coveralls. It was small, no larger than a coin. But to him, it was precious. Each piece he collected was another clue, another potential key to understanding the complex systems that control their lives. The facility was a world of its own. Hundreds of workers moved in precise patterns, their movements almost like a complex dance. Alien supervisors watched from raised platforms, their bodies different from humans, taller with multiple limbs and skin that seemed to change colors depending on their mood or function. As the work shift continued, Dahan kept his hope hidden behind a mask of careful efficiency. He knew something others didn't. He knew that these stolen pieces of technology could mean something. They could be the start of something bigger, something that might change everything. The underground meeting room was small and dark. Hannah Kim moved carefully between the rows of chairs, checking every corner for listening devices. Her medical training made her careful. Her resistance training made her cautious. 3 years of working inside the medical wing of the processing facility had taught her something important. Information was the most powerful weapon. And she had collected a lot of information. Around her, young people between 18 and 25 gathered quietly. They looked like ordinary workers, but their eyes were different. These were people who had not given up, people who still believed they could change something. "We have a new member," Hannah announced. The room went completely silent. Dahan stepped forward, the small piece of technology he had been collecting carefully wrapped in a cloth. His hands were steady, but his heart was racing. He knew this moment could change everything. "Show us," said Mira, who had followed Diane from the work facility. Her voice was low but sharp. Diane unwrapped the technology. It was a small circuit board, unlike anything the Krell 2 typically used. The metal was different. The design was unique. To the untrained eye, it might look like nothing. But to these young rebels, it was a piece of hope. June, a former maintenance worker, leaned forward. His hands moved quickly, examining the circuit board with expert fingers. "This is not standard Krell 2 technology," he said. "This looks like something modified, something human." The room buzzed with quiet excitement. For years, they had believed that humans could fight back, not with weapons, not with traditional fighting, but with intelligence, with technology. Hana understood the risks better than anyone. As a medical worker, she saw how the Kralatu treated humans. They were not just workers. They were biological resources, replaceable, disposable. "We have been collecting these pieces for months," Hana explained. "Small parts, broken technologies, things the Kralatu throw away. But we think these can be used to understand their systems." Yuna, a computer system expert, brought out a collection of modified computer tablets. They looked ordinary, but they were anything but normal. Each one was a carefully constructed tool designed to probe and understand the alien technology. "The Krell 2 believe we are weak," Jun said. "They think humans are just workers. But they are wrong." Daihan looked around the room. These were not just rebels. They were survivors. They were intelligent. And they were angry. The plan was complex. They would not fight the Krell 2 with weapons. They would fight with code, with understanding, by turning the aliens' own technology against them. "We need to be careful," Hana warned. "One mistake can destroy everything we have built." Outside the underground room, the world continued as normal. Humans worked in processing facilities. Alien overseers watched from their platforms. But something was changing. Slowly, carefully. A resistance was growing, not with violence, but with intelligence. Daihan looked at the circuit board. It was small, but it represented something big. A future where humans were not just workers. A future where they were free. The underground meeting room was small and dark. Hana Kim moved carefully between the rows of chairs, checking every corner for listening devices. Her medical training made her careful. Her resistance training made her cautious. 3 years of working inside the medical wing of the processing facility had taught her something important. Information was the most powerful weapon. And she had collected a lot of information. Around her, young people between 18 and 25 gathered quietly. They looked like ordinary workers, but their eyes were different. These were people who had not given up. People who still believed they could change something. "We have a new member," Hana announced. The room went completely silent. Daihan stepped forward, the small piece of technology he had been collecting carefully wrapped in a cloth. His hands were steady, but his heart was racing. He knew this moment could change everything. "Show us," said Mira, who had followed Daihan from the work facility. Her voice was low but sharp. Daihan unwrapped the technology. It was a small circuit board, unlike anything the Krell 2 typically used. The metal was different. The design was unique. To the untrained eye, it might look like nothing. But to these young rebels, it was a piece of hope. June, a former maintenance worker, leaned forward. His hands moved quickly, examining the circuit board with expert fingers. "This is not standard Krell 2 technology," he said. "This looks like something modified, something human." The room buzzed with quiet excitement. For years, they had believed that humans could fight back, not with weapons, not with traditional fighting, but with intelligence, with technology. Hana understood the risks better than anyone. As a medical worker, she saw how the Kralatu treated humans. They were not just workers. They were biological resources, replaceable, disposable. "We have been collecting these pieces for months," Hana explained. "Small parts, broken technologies, things the Kralatu throw away. but we think these can be used to understand their systems. Yuna, a computer system expert, brought out a collection of modified computer tablets. They looked ordinary, but they were anything but normal. Each one was a carefully constructed tool designed to probe and understand the alien technology. The Krell too believe we are weak, Jun said. They think humans are just workers. But they are wrong. Daehan looked around the room. These were not just rebels. They were survivors. They were intelligent. And they were angry. The plan was complex. They would not fight the Krell too with weapons. They would fight with code, with understanding, by turning the aliens' own technology against them. We need to be careful, Hannah warned. One mistake can destroy everything we have built. Outside the underground room, the world continued as normal. Humans worked in processing facilities. Alien overseers watched from their platforms. But something was changing. Slowly, carefully. A resistance was growing. Not with violence, but with intelligence. Daehan looked at the circuit board. It was small, but it represented something big. A future where humans were not just workers. A future where they were free. The supply transport moved slowly through the processing facility. From the outside, everything looked normal. Machines hummed. Workers moved carefully. Alien overseers watched from their platforms. But inside the transport, something was different. Jun had positioned himself perfectly. His maintenance worker uniform was clean. His movements were calm. No one would suspect anything was wrong. The first code sequence was hidden deep inside the transport's computer system. It was small, quiet, almost invisible. Daehan watched from a hidden monitoring station. His fingers hovered over multiple screens. Yuna stood next to him, her eyes tracking every single detail. Sequence activated, Yuna whispered. At first, nothing happened. The transport continued its journey. Workers continued their tasks. The alien overseers continued to watch. Then, small errors began to appear. A transportation schedule showed the wrong time. A supply routing system suggested an impossible path. A maintenance log recorded a repair that never happened. These were tiny mistakes, so small that most people would not even notice. But the Krell too were different. They trusted their technology completely. Every single error was a problem. Every mistake was a threat to their perfect system. In the medical wing, Hannah watched carefully. Her job gave her access to communication networks that other workers never saw. She collected information. She watched the small changes. The first stage is working, she reported during their next secret meeting. The resistance had grown. What started with a few people now included workers from different sections of the processing facility. A maintenance worker here, a medical assistant there, a computer technician in another section. They were careful. They were smart. They understood that one wrong move could destroy everything. Mira, who had followed Daehan from the very beginning, now helped recruit new members. She knew how to speak to people, how to find those who still had hope. We are not fighting with weapons, she would tell potential recruits. We are fighting with our minds. The Krell too began to notice the small errors. At first, they thought it was a system problem. They ran diagnostics. They checked computer networks. But they found nothing serious. Just small, strange mistakes. Daehan understood something important. The Krell too believed their technology was perfect. They would never believe that humans could create these errors on purpose. We are invisible, he told the group. We are everywhere and nowhere. Each successful code sequence was a small victory. Each hidden message was a step towards freedom. The processing facility continued to work. Humans moved like machines. Alien overseers watched from above. But something was changing. Slowly, carefully, intelligently. The resistance was growing. And the Krell too did not even know it was happening. The day started like any other. Massive processing facilities hummed with activity. Humans moved between machines. Alien overseers watched from their high platforms. But today was different. Daehan sat in the hidden control room, his fingers moving quickly across multiple screens. Around him, the resistance members waited. Hannah stood close, her medical tablet showing strange system readings. Yuna watched the computer networks with intense concentration. "It's time," Diane said quietly. At exactly 900 hours, the first system went down. A transportation network in the western sector suddenly showed impossible routes. Supply trucks stopped moving. Computer systems began to display random error messages. To anyone watching, it looked like a simple technical problem. But it was anything but simple. In the medical wing, Hannah watched as communication systems began to fail. Patient transfer records became jumbled. Medical supply tracking went offline. The Krell-2 supervisors looked confused, tapping their communication devices. June, working in the maintenance section, had positioned key resistance members in critical locations. Each person was ready. Each person knew exactly what to do. The attacks were happening everywhere, not with weapons, not with violence, but with carefully designed computer code. Transportation systems began to fail. One by one, networks went offline. The Krell-2 communication systems started to show strange, impossible errors. An alien supervisor approached a human worker, demanding an explanation. The worker looked confused, showed genuine surprise. Nothing seemed suspicious. Mira, who had been carefully placed in the central communication hub, watched as alien control systems began to break down. Small errors became bigger problems. Communication became difficult. "They don't understand," she whispered to herself. "They think their technology is perfect." The resistance had planned this moment for months. Every single action was calculated. Every single error was designed to create maximum confusion with minimum suspicion. In the processing facilities, humans continued to work, but something was different in their eyes. A small spark of hope. A tiny feeling that something was changing. Dahan watched the screens. Each failed system was a victory. Each broken network was a step towards freedom. The Krell-2 began to panic. Their perfect systems were failing. Communication became difficult. Transportation stopped working. Supply chains broke down. But they did not understand why. Hannah moved carefully through the medical wing. To anyone watching, she looked like a normal medical assistant. But she was collecting information, watching the systems fail. "Phase 1 is complete," she reported through a hidden communication device. The resistance had chosen their targets carefully. Transportation networks, communication systems, supply tracking. Each system was critical to the Krell-2's control. By midday, the alien supervisors were running between computer stations. Their smooth skin showed signs of stress, changing colors rapidly. Something was very wrong with their systems, but they could not find the problem. Dahan allowed himself a small smile. The first stage of their plan was working perfectly. The humans were still working. The machines were still running. But something had changed. The Krell-2 were no longer in complete control. The Krell-2 main control center was a massive room filled with spinning holographic displays. Alien supervisors moved frantically between computer stations. Their skin changed colors rapidly, a sign of extreme stress and confusion. "We cannot find the source," one supervisor said, his multiple arms moving across different control panels. They did not know that the enemy was already inside their systems. Dahan watched from a hidden monitoring station. Each of their carefully designed code sequences was now working perfectly. What started as small errors had become a complete system breakdown. "They're trying to reset," Yuna said, her eyes tracking the alien computer networks. "But we've locked them out." The resistance had done something the Krell-2 thought was impossible. They had turned the aliens' own technology against them. Defense systems began to malfunction. Security cameras showed wrong information. Communication networks collapsed. The Krell-2 believed in their technology more than anything else, and now that technology was failing them completely. June had positioned resistance members in key locations across the processing facilities. Each person knew exactly what to do. Each person was part of a larger plan. In the transportation hub, supply trucks began to move to impossible locations. Maintenance robots started performing random tasks. Security systems opened and closed doors without reason. Hannah watched from the medical wing. Her medical tablet showed complete chaos in the alien tracking systems. Patient records mixed up. Supply inventories showed impossible numbers. "They can't understand what's happening," she reported to the team. The Krell-2 had always believed humans were simple workers. They thought humans could never understand their complex technology. They were wrong. Mira, positioned in the central communication hub, continued to introduce small but critical errors. Each error made the system more confused. Each mistake made the Krell-2 lose more control. The Resistance had prepared for months. Every single line of code was designed for maximum damage with minimum detection. Alien supervisors ran between computer stations. Their communication devices showed nothing but error messages. Their tracking systems produced impossible results. "This is not possible," one supervisor repeated over and over. But it was happening. Daehan understood something important. They were not fighting with weapons. They were fighting with intelligence, with understanding, with technology. The processing facilities continued to operate. Humans still worked. But something was different. A feeling of hope had spread. A feeling that things could change. Defense systems began to fail. Security robots moved in random patterns. Communication networks became a mess of mixed messages and incorrect information. The Krell-2 had created a perfect system. A system they believed could not be broken. They were wrong. By late afternoon, the alien supervisors were in complete panic. Their perfect technology was falling apart, and they could not understand why. Daehan looked at the screens. Each failed system was a victory. Each broken network was a step towards freedom. "We are not just workers," he whispered to himself. "We are intelligent. We are strong." The technological war had begun, and the humans were winning. The main control center was silent. Alien supervisors stood frozen, their skin turning pale gray, a color of complete defeat. Hannah knew what was coming next. "They're going to try a planetary shutdown," she told Daehan. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. The Krell-2 had one final defense. If they could not control the planet, they would destroy it. A complete system reset that would kill everything, human and alien alike. Daehan looked at the screens. Massive energy buildup was happening in the central control systems. Somewhere deep in the planet's core, massive machines were preparing for total destruction. "We have one chance," he said. The Resistance had trained for this moment. Every single member knew exactly what to do. June had mapped the control center's systems months ago. Yuna had created special code sequences designed for this exact moment. Mira gathered a small team. They would make the final infiltration. The processing facility had become a battlefield of technology. Humans moved carefully. Alien systems flickered and failed. But the biggest threat was yet to come. "The planetary reset sequence is building," Yuna reported. Her fingers moved quickly across multiple computer screens. "We have less than 30 minutes. Daehan looked at Hannah. They both knew the risks. If they failed, everything would be destroyed. Mira's team moved through hidden passages. They had studied the control center for months. Every air duct, every hidden corridor. They knew the system better than the Krell-2. The alien supervisors were desperate. Their perfect technology had failed. Their control was breaking. In the central control room, massive energy systems began to charge. If activated, they would send a planet-wide destruction pulse. Everything would be destroyed. June's maintenance knowledge became critical. He had learned every single system during his years of work. Now that knowledge would save them. "We can stop it," he said, "but someone needs to be inside the main control system." Daehan volunteered immediately. The plan was dangerous, impossible, some would say, but they had come too far to give up now. Mira's team created a distraction. Alien security systems began to malfunction. Doors opened and closed randomly. Alarm systems went crazy. Daehan moved quickly. His understanding of alien technology was now their greatest weapon. The main control system was a massive holographic network. Streams of data moved like living things. Dahan began to introduce his final code sequence. 30 seconds to planetary reset, a computer voice announced. Hannah watched from the monitoring station. Her medical training had taught her about systems, about how complex networks worked. 20 seconds. Dahan's fingers moved faster than anyone had ever seen. 15 seconds. The resistance held their breath. 10 seconds. The alien supervisors realized what was happening. 5 seconds. Dahan made his final move. 0. Silence. Then, a small beep. The planetary reset sequence stopped. The processing facility was quiet. No more alien supervisors watched from high platforms. No more machines controlled every movement. Dahan stood in the central control room, looking at the systems he and his team had defeated. Around him, the resistance members began to realize what they had accomplished. "We did it," Hannah said simply. The Krell 2 were gone. Not destroyed, not killed, but completely removed from power. Their technology had been turned against them. Their control systems had been dismantled piece by piece. Jung began to map out the facility's new potential. His maintenance experience would be crucial in rebuilding. "We can use these systems differently," he explained to the group. "We can make them work for us." Yuna was already working on new computer networks. Networks that would be open. Networks that would be fair. No more hidden control. No more secret systems. Mira gathered other workers. People who had been slaves just days before were now learning that they could be something more. They could be builders, creators, free people. The first days were difficult. The humans had to learn how to use the systems the Krell 2 had left behind. But they were smart. They were careful. They understood that freedom was not just about removing the old control. It was about creating something new. Medical systems were the first to be rebuilt. Hannah worked carefully, making sure that human health became the priority. No more treating humans like replaceable parts. Now, each person mattered. Transportation networks were next. June and his team worked to create systems that connected people, not control them. Systems that made life easier. Dahan became the lead technology advisor. His ability to understand and modify complex systems had saved them all. But he never wanted to be a leader. He wanted to be a builder. "We are not going to be like them," he told the group during their first meeting. "We will create systems that help people, that give people choices." The resistance became something more. Not just a fighting group, but a rebuilding group. Schools were created, not training centers for workers, but real schools where people could learn, could grow, could dream. Technology was shared. No more secret systems, no more hidden controls. Weeks passed, then months. The planet began to change. Humans who had been workers became creators. People who had been controlled became leaders. Mira started a communication network. People could now talk freely, share ideas, learn from each other. Yuna developed new computer systems, systems that were transparent, systems that people could understand. Hannah created medical training programs, programs that taught people how to care for each other. June rebuilt the infrastructure, making sure that everyone had what they needed. And Dahan, he continued to study, to learn, to make sure that the technology they used would never again be a tool of control. The old processing facility became something new, a center of learning, a place of hope. They had not just defeated the Krell 2. They had created something better, a future where technology served people, not the other way around. Freedom was not just about removing chains. It was about creating something new. And they were just getting started.